some people in the industry like on Orvis a little bit as like the corporate brand. And they say Orvis is the brand that makes dog beds and khaki pants. What's your take on that?
Dogs need beds and people need to wear pants.
Welcome to the Flylords Podcast. We are here with Shawn Combs, the head product developer for Orvis Fishing.
Technically the director of product design and development for the fish, hunt, and dog categories. And then also I have the pleasure of being the lead developer for rods and reels.
Damn. I can't remember all that and say it back, but you have it here from Shawn. We're here in Basalt, Colorado in the HQ. Just did some fishing up on the frying pan.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been here before?
Yep. It's been about a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it last time compared to this time?
It was different.
Yeah.
There's twice as much water.
There's a lot of
today.
water.
A lot of water today. It's June 7th, maybe something like that. A little runoff. They turned the faucet on up at the top of the frying pan. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was wet.
It was definitely wet.
Yeah.
Shawn was the only one who caught fish. He caught for
I think I was the only one fishing.
You
You were casting talent.
I was casting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a working title for this podcast. Did Shawn Combs design the best fly rod ever made?
Short answer is no. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Seriously though, Shawn, for people who don't know who Shawn is, he is one of the most dialed, and he's the GOAT of fly rod manufacturing, designing in the fly fishing industry. That's my opinion. I know you're a humble guy, but I really think that you've been a huge part of the evolution of fly rod manufacturing.
Well, I've been around it. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know about GOAT. There's a lot of people who rolled up blanks and made wiggly things that brought people to the river to make them fish, or go to the flats and make them fish. When I came to Orvis, they had been making rods since 1856, and super just fortunate to join in on a team that was all passionate people. We have a rod shop in southern Vermont. The Helios rods were made there, in 2000. I think it was 2007. I like to tell the Helios story from then forward. First gen Helios. A young punk by the name of Steve Hempkins walked in to the then VP's office and said, we need to make the world's lightest rod. At the time, we had zero gravity, red blanks. They were really sweet. They're beautiful rods. Some people loved them, some people not so much. And Steve sort of shook up the ant farm and took a heritage brand that was really solid and just made them get kind of off kilter. They focused on making the world's lightest rod. They did that with Helios Gen 1. And then probably, I think it was 2010, I met Steve on an airplane.
I heard this story.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of crazy. It's actually always, be on the lookout for other anglers around you, because you never know. He was reading the Drake mag. I was flying home to New York. I lived in upstate New York, flying home from fishing in Utah. And the Drake mag was a new issue. And I was like, hey, random guy across the aisle, can I borrow that? He loans it to me. I don't know. Half an hour later, we land. Gave me his magazine back. Steve, being Steve, who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? Do you like this? Just had my email. 3 months later, he emails me and is like, hey, would you like to come to work for Orvis? Designing rods, blah, blah, blah.
What were you doing at the time?
At the time, I was working for a Department of Energy laboratory, so U.S. DOE, called Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory. That lab was responsible for nuclear propulsion for submarines and aircraft carriers for the U.S. Navy, which is a lot of geek talk, right? I mean, it took me a while to say that. And essentially, it was all really, really, really fascinating work, but not really connected from a passion standpoint. So when I met Steve, whenever he gave me that opportunity, I jumped on it, came over to Orvis, met the crew, got hired in 2011. Rest is history.
And so you got hired after the first generation of Helios.
Yeah, I was hired in 2011. So Helios Gen 1 was about 3 years in.
Who created the Helios?
It was Rod Shop.
gen?
Hemkins was the product developer.
Okay.
So he was, sort of, if you will, there's, a lot of people always, oh, who's the designer? Who's the person who's like over the rolling table, and,
The overlord.
Some maybe that Flylords overlord stuff. I'm like, who's the ringleader on the team?
Ringleader
of circus bandits that are like, let's make cool fly rods.
Yeah.
That was Steve at the time,
Cool.
and so Steve had hired me to do that stuff, sort of that job, that lead product developer. But the cool part about it is at the rod shop, we've got, right now the rod shop's being held up or run by Don Swanson. He's our director of manufacturing.
Don Swanson.
Who
Sounds like a fake name.
No. So Don came to us about 8 years ago. He came from Able. So he worked for Steve and really took Able and made it not just like great reels, but fantastic looking reels with like that quality Able finish. That's nice. that bling, if you will.
Yeah.
Don, Frank Hord's been at the rod shop for 20 some years, local Vermonter, grew up just probably 2 miles away. I would call him our, he's the director of manufacturing, oversees the rod shop from a manufacturing standpoint, and also the lead of the R&D team.
Cool.
So Frank and I and Don, pretty much that's the triad, if you will. And then you throw in the merchants and the marketing, the team gets bigger and bigger, field testing and all that. But there's not like, a lot of people like try to assign that like lead role to me, and I'm just part of the team. So that takes you back to that 2011. I come in and I think I was 6 months in, worked on some Clearwater rods, really wanted to really absorb how rods were designed at Orvis. And then they came to me and Steve was like, hey, you're going to make Helios too. And I literally tell the story all the time. I think I went home and I cried and I was like, what did I get myself into? I have no idea what I'm doing.
But like maybe crying in excitement a little bit.
No, in a pillow. Face down.
Where does the term Helios even come from?
Oh, so it's a good one. A lot of people don't ever ask that. So, naming at Orvis is really interesting, right? Naming in general, right? You want to name that resonates with the customer, gives them an emotional response, something that's kind of catchy and, not just fly rod, Orvis fly rod, right? And so you find yourselves, we get these product launches and a bunch of people get in the room. You got Rosenbauers and you got, some of the Perkins family and us developers and marketers. And a guy by the name of Ray McCready, he was like, oh, the best Greek god was Helios. He was the sun god. And somebody was like, Helios, that sounds great. And they wrote it down. And then they went and they made logos and labels and they made rods and they went to IFTD. And they were there, and some guys from Okumo came over and said, cool new rod. We have a reel called Helios? And it's like, that's a stop you in your tracks moment, right? You're at the trade show, and you're like, how did we do that? And they were super cool. I mean, great people. They just basically said, a handshake, $1 a year licensing agreement, have fun. You own it for rods. That's why there's no Helios reel or Helios fly line.
Gotcha. Cool.
But yeah, it was just a random, like Ray McCready was the president at the time. And he just literally throw it at, brainstorming like sun god.
I have a kind of a random question here. So for people who say Orvis is a brand that they like, some people in the industry like shit on Orvis a little bit as like the corporate brand. And they say Orvis is the brand that makes dog beds and khaki pants. They're not a real fly rod company. How does that make you feel? And what's kind of what's your take on that?
Dogs need beds and people need to wear pants. That's really it. I mean, the fact of the matter is it used to get me fired up. When I first started working at Orvis, I had a Orvis belt buckle from like 1972 and a handful of CFOs. And I've told people this before, I probably owned like 12 Scott rods. Not because they were the best casting rods or I was the best caster, just because I had some brand affinity there. And when I came to work at Orvis, I started to meet. I mean, it was eye opening meeting the family, the culture, the people, passionate people. And like, day 3, Tom Rosenbauer walks by, and you're like, whoa, I mean, I didn't listen to his podcast. I read his books,
Yeah.
I've caught up on his podcast though since.
Nice.
Yeah. But, and you see that side. And I think those are the people who, there was a point in time, probably 15 years ago, where you were cool if you made fun of Orvis, because that's what cool people did.
Yeah.
But I think since then we've doubled down on innovation and, performance and, gone through every category, from a fly fishing standpoint, and checked the boxes and made what I think are, very competitive product that enhance day on the waters. So yeah, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, try our pants and our fly rods,
I mean, it really seems like the way that you guys combat being this corporate entity when everyone's like, fly shop small and support this made in Montrose, Colorado, Scott fly rod brand. It seems like the way you guys combat that is with amazing product.
We do that, and we also, we give 5% of all of our profits to conservation. And I didn't, I was talking at the time to Paul Roos, older guy, and he was like, you ever fish the XYZ? And I'm like, yeah, I fished that. And he was like, yeah, that became a public resource because of Orvis, and it was in 1982.
Okay,
and I'm like, huh.
So you've done a lot of good for our industry.
Ton of good work. That will never be really marketed. Yeah. I mean, you flip the catalog and you're like, yeah, we've been behind Pebble Mine since day one.
Yeah.
Now we're Neverglades, fighting the sugar industry there. Taking ads out in the Wall Street Journal and Miami Herald.
I remember that was big.
We do those things, but we just keep our head down and support what we know is right. And, it all comes back.
Yeah, love that. Let's rewind a little bit. So you are a engineer building nuclear subs, and then you're reading a Drake magazine on an airplane, and 3 months later you become the guy working on the second evolution of the Helios rod.
Crying in his pillow.
How did how did that happen? I feel like you had a job where you were probably making good money, I'm assuming. Probably took a lot of time and effort to get to a place in your life where you could be working on a project that big or in a place that big. What really made you say, like, I want to design fly rods?
So truth be told, on that one, I was in high school. Guidance counselor was like, what do you want to be? Police officer, fireman? I was pretty dialed. I was like, I want to be a mechanical engineer. I want, okay, what do you want to do? Like build engines for a race car? And I'm like, no, I want to work for a company to either design snow skis, mountain bikes, or fly rods.
Okay.
That was a long time ago, So I was like, went to school, did all that, got a master's in mechanical engineering like I was supposed to, and then went to a career fair and got hired by ExxonMobil and moved to Houston, Texas. It's not a lot of, snow skiing. I mean, there's good fishing, but I did that. I think that I was like, well, be working for Exxon. I can help change the world, maybe get cleaner, combustible products or something like that. I don't know. I was a kid.
Yeah.
That lasted about a year. I was working in Calgary, and I was fishing with this guy who was my mentor one night on the bow, and driving back, he's got a cigar, and he's like, kid, he's probably like 60 years old, and he's like, kid, you need to leave Exxon. Whoa, Mark, why is that? He's like, well, if I was your age, I want somebody to tell me that. I was like, okay. So literally, 2 days later, after a month in Calgary, fishing every night, working every day, went back to Exxon, and I was like, I'm out. They're like, really? What are you going to do? And I was like, oh, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
And, and I thought I was going to go do something cool, and I ended up working in oil, gas, traveling the world, on the clean, well, not the clean side or whatever, but on vapor recovery. Traveled the world through my 20s, and then found myself in upstate New York working for the DOE. And then airplane, magazine, here we are. doing a podcast.
Damn.
Yeah.
So, Shawn, I think something that interests me is everybody has a rod in their hand. They talk about why they like it, why they don't like it, the aesthetics, things like that. But I don't think a lot of people realize what goes into making one of these. And I think that would be something really cool to unwrap in this podcast, is figuring out what goes into building what some would call the best fly rod on the market. So this is a two-part question. One would be, talk to me about when you got thrown into the trenches and you're crying in your pillow at night, and there's this H1, and I'm sure people really liked it. I can't remember like how well the H1 really did, but what did you do when you were like, how do I make this better?
Sure.
Talk about that evolution.
Well, so the H1 at the time, I would go to the guide rendezvous and everybody was like, there's no way you can make a better fly rod. Orvis. They're saying Orvis, not me. You know? And I'm like, well, but, first thing you do is you ask people what their impression is. You gather insights. So, Orvis is awesome because we've got a network of anglers, guides, lodge owners, shop employees, just people who just grind it out every day for the passion of it and go fishing every day. They're field testers, they're partners. I basically just made friends with a bunch of them, and it's like, what about this rod has ever let you down? And start asking those questions. And then instead of finding the faults, you start seeking the opportunities, and you get a good list of that together, and you're like, okay, cool. So the rod didn't do this thing, shoots into the wind or, bounces fish on a hook set, whatever, right? Just different things. Or, oh, here's a good one. My clients broke it, day ender. It's kind of hard to have that fish of a lifetime for them, be it a brook trout or a tarpon. And they break the rod regardless of whether it was, user error or not. There wasn't enough of an insurance policy built in to the rod's performance itself. And so they break the rod and they're sitting there and they're like, fish is gone. And, they've invested a lot to get to that point in their life where they're having this moment. So with H1, we made the world's lightest rod. With H2, we really went to the whiteboard and said, okay, we've listened. We need to make it stronger. We actually can make it lighter, but not physically lighter and, on a scale, but swing weight can be lighter. Which is also going to help based on the mass distribution down the blank with tracking and recovery. And then, we also wrote down, make it smoother. At the time, we were like, well, what does that really mean? As an engineer, you like to measure things. We didn't have capability to measure it, so it was really handing the rod to you, and you cast it. You turn around and go, oh, that's nice. It's smooth. It tracks really well. And you're like, okay, impressions. Come in, and you're like, I'm going the right direction. But H2 was really an exercise about observing and measuring what Helios, like the best parts of Helios, and then finding the opportunities to enhance it, make it better. And I think that the biggest jump in evolution there was not so much that they were way drastically better casting rods, it was that they were stronger. And we were really focused at the rod shop on making them stronger. Like Captain Mangum, David Mangum's like calling me up, and I know who he is, but I don't know him. And he's like, yeah, I need rods that last, throughout the whole season, and focus on that. I don't care how they cast. Hooking the tarpon's the easy thing. Feeding the tarpon's the easy thing. Landing them for clients is where it gets, real. And so we did that, and it was awesome. H2s, we go to the guide rendezvous, and 500 of your closest friends are like, wow, no idea how you made a rod that's better, Orvis. And then 4 years later or 3 years later, you're asking them, what do you not like about your H2s? Sending surveys out. We broadened that insight collection to our customers. So, customers have a different experience with product than guides do. They're actually the ones, using them day in, day out. And guides often can articulate the differences. Customers can feel the differences, A guide can compensate and make a okay rod cast great. Or I say guide, but, an accomplished angler. Sometimes just making, watching, beginners fish out of a boat, and you hand them a Helios, and they're just like making better casts. They're filling the load. They're making accurate casts. They're hitting seams. Their confidence is getting better, and they're in it. And that's those are day changers for the situation. So we got back on surveys that you need to make Helios 3 needs to be focused on accuracy. It needs to be more accurate. Needs to be stronger, and the quality needs to be there. And that was H3 was really all about accuracy. And the other thing we did was we stepped away from mid flex and tip flex, went with the F series for finesse, the D series for distance, which really helped the consumer because, a person walks into the shop here just below you guys and they go, I want a new fly rod. And the first thing somebody goes, are you tip flex or a mid flex person? And they're like, I have no idea. I also don't know the difference between a rainbow and a brown trout, but I think they're beautiful, Yeah, like I'm new at this. So we wanted to declutter the complication of it, and H3s were awesome. That was such a fun series to build and to watch it kind of go out and get fished. And I think with each one of these, with Helios, a lot of people would say, well, that's really when Orvis started to kind of turn and make that shift. And then Helios 2 sort of built on that momentum, and H3 really kind of ramped it up. And at first we took we got a lot of people who were like, really, can you really make a better rod? Every other company's just putting out a new rod every year. They think that we are too, but they're really like 5 to 6 year life cycles. Helios 3 comes out and it blew us away, the response from anglers. And
was that the first one where you had that, you decided to put that white mark above the grip?
Yeah.
Whose idea was that? So talk me through that.
Yeah. So, I think that I'm the only person that can claim responsibility for that idea because nobody really wanted to claim responsibility for it. That was an interesting journey. So we had this rod, and we prototype rods that are painted matte black or painted gray or whatever. No labels, no pretty stuff, whatever. And then you sit down and you're like, I'm fishing these rods, and I'm like, wow, these are not sports cars. These are Formula One cars. And I started thinking about that, and I think I was on a chairlift, and I'm looking down, and from a long distance, I'm like, yeah, that person's on DPS. That person over there, they're like, they got Soul 7s. And I started thinking about fly rods, how they just, they didn't really, there wasn't anything that was identifiable. And it makes sense, right? You get this long cylinder, and you can paint them red, green, blue, black, gray. I really wanted to take and celebrate that performance and then create some brand DNA that was recognizable, and that's the white label. And the Orvis, I probably turned it up to 11.5, maybe 12. And I remember trying to get it, bought in, and I took it to Steve's office, and he was like, whoa, cowbell, too much, dude. Like, go back to the drawing board.
What do you mean 11 or 12?
Oh,
out of 10?
Out of 10, yeah.
In terms of
my amp goes to 11.
In terms of how
these kids, you guys have to catch up. If you're gonna podcast an old person, you need to get all the pop reference culture.
Listen, I feel like the 12 threw me off a little bit because I think if you said turn to 11, I would have been like,
more than 11, 11.5, 12.
And you're talking about how much the grip, the rod actually stood out on the water, and
just in general, how disruptive it was.
Okay.
And you think about it, there's that disruptive nature where people, they get a response.
Yeah.
They see it, and it's not just another fly rod. They have to put the click readers on and get close and go, oh, what's an Orvis rod? This one, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
They see it, and they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Is that serious? Like, that? That's going to scare the fish.
Yeah.
That's going to do this. And, whatever. We probably overachieved on the disruption factor, and literally, there were letters that were probably sent in to Rosenbauer, fire whoever put that white label.
I love how they go to Rosenbauer. They think he runs the whole company.
He does. Secretly, he's down in the basement pulling the levers, right? But yeah, we caught a lot of flack for that, and then the hook keeper. I took the hook keeper off. That was my idea. Let's get rid of.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because you never used one before, right?
Every once in a while I do, and I don't even know why I do. Maybe it's because I don't have enough leader out to hook it onto an actual guide.
So you're like, oh, that's
very
convenient.
Rarely.
So my mind works in the way that when you move from one spot to another, you don't want to pull your 9-foot leader, your 14-foot leader back through the tip top and do the little shuffle. And, and so I was like, well, if you just, take the hook keeper off, nobody will put it there. And then we just put curved feet, radius feet on our reels. So you just throw the hook on and, a stripper guide or snake guide and wrap it around and off you go. And people literally, they were like, we got letters like, Orvis is cheaping out on these rods.
Really?
Yeah. What is it, saving $1.50 to put a wind a hook keeper on? I'm like,
does Tom respond to these?
He sometimes does. He usually just comes to me and he's like, hey, I got another customer you need to call.
He handwrite responses to each person?
No.
So here's the reason why we took...
No, but I've called customers before and started really great relationships. When somebody has like that they have an issue, all feedback's great feedback, and I've called people. Actually, I called a guy one time and he almost sold me a car when I was 16. Random customer. Had a problem with an access rod, it comes in, presidential letter, couldn't get something, And I was like, Louisville, Kentucky, huh? Like, I'm going to call this guy. So I had his number. I call him and answers the phone. And, in a little bit of that, like this, that, and the other, he worked at the car dealership in the town I grew up in. And he's like, yeah, I know your dad. Your dad brought you to the dealership when you were 16. Yeah. And I was like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So small world stuff.
Nice.
But, taking the time to listen to the customer, that's another example, even if they're telling you, what'd you do with the hook keeper, it's an opportunity to say, actually, try it this way.
Yeah.
And you're going to love it when you go to rig and move to the next spot.
Let's finish we made it to H3.
Good luck.
I know you've been there.
Believe
I know
this.
you've been doing this for a long time.
No.
Let's transition from 3 to 4. And I'm trying to think like, all right, we need to make this lighter. We need to make this stronger. Yep. We need to make this more accurate. We need to make it look better. Are you like in a lab coat mixing ingredients to figure out how to make this thing stronger or how to make this thing lighter? What goes into the development of, a rod that's so good, that's been around for what? You said around a 5-year cycle. Mm-hmm. How do you make something, what goes into that to make it better?
So from 3 to the current generation, Gen 4. That was a full teardown. I mean, that was like, okay, we can't just make it stronger. I mean, we can focus on making it stronger and casting better and changing the way it looks and all that, but like we need a full teardown. So we went through the 29 models, measured everything we could. I mean, just literally like we didn't put lab coats on. We just wore normal clothes, but we probably had beakers somewhere stored in a cabinet. But we went in and we measured everything we could, measured breakage, looked at like 5 years of breakage data. Where did the rods break? When we get them back, we keep and collect that data. Are there models that some of them maybe broke more in the tip mid than others, And through that, we were measuring wall thicknesses, recovery rates, tracking. We developed special equipment that really changed our ability to capture the performance of the rod and the casting motion. Rods are complex springs and they're nonlinear. Like from one section to the next, they're ever changing in their spring rate. And the more you load them, the more, longer your cast, they're going to behave differently, right? Short cast versus a powerful long cast. And then you've got every model is different as well. So we're really just in this motion of collecting all the data, looking for trends of, that rod subjectively, the 904F of the H3 series, everybody would tell you that's a sweet rod, sweet dry fly rod. What about that? So we just start measuring the tracking of it, and it's like, it tracks better than the 905, and it's splitting hairs, but it tracks better. So we start, looking at construction layups, everything, the material schedule of where we're putting what modulus material in what section of the rod. And started looking for those converging trends, and then really kind of doubled down on reinventing the whole series. I mean, that was the coolest part, is there's no rod that was, this is just a tweak of the old one. They were completely ground up, new tapers. And, you hear that all the time. It's like, we have our new tapers, and we did this, and we did that. This is we ground up redesign, and it's been awesome, because for me, every time you go out and fish one, you're just like, yeah, I know what tracking and recovery looks like, because we have machine vision and infrared cameras, and we're doing that data collection. But then you go out and you fish, and you're like, this is what it feels like on the water when you're just hitting spots, you know. And the product, I think with H2 or H3, I was quoted as like, it's like an extension of your arm. And with the 4th gen, you know, I was laying this out with marketing with Drew Nisbet, and I was like trying to tell him, and I'm in like the flow state of just like splurting out stuff. And I'm like, man, it's like you see where you want to put it, and then the fly, you know, from your eyeball to your arm to your thumb to the rod, and the rod does exactly what your thumb does, which is what your eyeball does. And if you do that, your fly just, there it is. And, you know, you can still have wind and you can still like do things that are wrong, but the rod's doing what it needs to do. So in a machine, as long as, you know, that puts all the kind of onus on you from the performance standpoint. And I think at first, honestly, Jared, people were like a little, you know, 4 times more accurate. And they're like, no way, you know, cool. Well, that's good marketing. But the tracking that we're measuring, you know, from a left and right standpoint of the rod, I'm gonna go with you, but it might go with the camera. But the rod, as it goes through, it's gonna do this as it's recovering. It oscillates. Our rods basically stay in a straight line, and the energy goes to the line itself. There's no left and right. So, you know, you don't see the wiggle going back and forth trying to aerial min for your stack min when you don't want it to. And that basically just keeps the rod tip path on straight to the target. And we used to, Helios 3s, they were like tracking was 1.6 inches of threshold, and the new rods are like 0.4, which 0.4 is like the width of a tip top, which is where I mean, me personally, I'm like, I've seen a lot of cool stuff. And if it weren't for the fact that there were, you know, it's not just a human eye, it's machine vision and cameras and everything else, like that's awesome. And that was kind of the turning point for that series of like, there's something with the tracking thing, and there's something that we've discovered and we've kind of designed through iterations. And we're going to take that and we're going to capitalize on it and make rods that track really well, recovery really well, cast better. And then we're also, this is my favorite part, is while we're at it, you know, you kind of cross your arms and you go, like, we're going to make them stronger, because why not? You know, and then you get field testing comes in and you're like, yeah, the rods are super accurate. You know, they're better than I am. You know, it's like a lot of people say, like, at what point is accuracy not measurable from a on the water standpoint? You know, like TVs, you know, 4K TV, your eye can't even keep up with the clarity. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I've heard that analogy. I think it works. Breakage, once you hook a fish, it's about landing the fish and landing it, not just landing it, but landing it responsibly as fast as possible. So taking a tarpon, a good size adult tarpon, and making that like a sub 20-minute fight, not like a 3-4 hour deal where it's worn out. And then when you do finally release it, you know, it's like predation and sharks and everything else. And it's got a lot of going against it at that point. So I think that's where the extra lifting power and all that with Helios is pretty awesome.
Damn.
Did I convince you?
How much are they again?
I don't know.
I was going to ask you, I got a couple of questions, but the marketing that goes behind a rod launch, how important is that?
Well, I think out of respect to marketers,
yeah,
it's super important. It is the voice of the product, right? You can have a fantastic product that no one hears about, no one sees, you know, it is just hides in the shadows.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a voice. And really the marketing, I've always been fascinated with marketing, whether it's I want to be there kind of marketing or it's this will do this for you kind of marketing. I think it's super important because it gives a voice to the product. And I think that, you know, our attention spans are shorter and shorter and shorter. And it used to be that all it would take is an 8.5 by 11 in a magazine of like the new rod. Yeah. Go to your fly shop and try it. And people had time and they would stroll in with a cup of coffee and you got the new rod? Yeah. And they would try it and, you know, and then they'd go home and then they would, you know, kind of like think about what it would be like to have the new rod. And then they would look at their bank account and they'd figure it out and they'd go buy it and they'd fish it.
Yeah.
And then they would tell all their friends. And that was like a season or two before that rod got that kind of like, you know, horsepower. Now you can market a new pair of shorts on Instagram, having never made shorts in your life, and if you do it right, like you've got millions of eyeballs, right? If you do it right.
Yeah.
And so that storytelling side of it, that's where marketing gets you up to the point of purchase. And then the product's performance and the innovation and the passion and the quality of the product. And I think more so than ever, the brand that's behind the product.
Yeah, that's important. So the most accurate fly rod ever made, is that the slogan?
No, it's your best is 4 times better.
But I thought it was the most accurate.
I don't.
Come on. Is that
I
not?
should probably know this. I mean,
Jess, help me out here.
Somebody can fact check it later, but I think it's your best is 4 times better.
Okay.
Which is really, it's really our best.
I thought I saw an ad that said this is the most accurate fly rod
You
ever
probably did. So
Okay.
what we did in development is we brought in rods from Competitive Landscape and we measured their
every rod.
not
or the top
not
rods.
every rod, but the top rods.
So how can you say it's the most accurate ever?
Well, because we measured based on tracking.
Yeah.
And recovery, we measured, and it's something that I honestly like. I am more of a go try the rods and not a let me put on my most accurate rod medal and tell you. But
I know that's
there's a lot of great rods out there, but to be truth be told, it was our responsibility to measure Competitive Landscape as well, and where we were with Helios 3, 1.6 inches of threshold left and right.
Yeah.
In the first 3 seconds. Which is not exactly, but average 60-foot, 905, 9'5" weight trout cast with a dry fly on.
Yeah.
It's about 3 seconds from the rod unloading to going 60 feet and landing on the water.
Okay.
So what's happening in those 3 seconds, left and right, and how fast it's recovering? We measured that. We were new rods 0.4 inches, about a tip top. H3 was 1.6. The next nearest competitor was 3.2.
Who is that?
Can't tell you.
Come on.
No, I can't. I mean,
you can't tell me the second most accurate rod that's out there?
It would be the third, actually, but
let's hear the third.
No, it would be the third. Helios 3 was the second most accurate rod.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you guys think your Helios 3 is still better than any rod on the market?
As measured. I mean, it's not a thought thing. And then everybody, we could have great debates, all pour one out and talk about it at a round table on does tracking translate to accuracy?
Yeah.
And I could spend another podcast, an hour's worth of talking anyone through how accuracy of a fly rod, is completely directly related to tracking, the ability of the rod to transfer the energy efficiently, regardless of length of cast, in a straight line and not pull energy or throw a sine wave.
You guys did a great job with the ad, like the graphic ad that I saw, and I think that was maybe the one that
Have you seen the video? When we get done, I'll show you the video of in the
I
lab
think
measuring.
I think that's the video I saw, and it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll link it below.
The coolest part about it is, we brought old generations of, really old graphite generations of fly rods, and back in. So our first graphite fly rod was introduced Christmas of 1974. So we're coming into our 50th anniversary of making graphite rods. Coming into our 169th or 8th or whatever. I'm not that good at math. Since 1856 of making fly rods, but we've been working in graphite. We were like a 3-way tie of first to market back in 74. And the ads for that in the catalog, they were talking about going from fiberglass and bamboo to this new material. It was all about tracking, recovery, power transfer, smoothness. It was all the same thing. It's what a fly rod needs to do for you. So we didn't make up the problem. The problem's always been there, and we've just been continuously honing our craft and innovating and making it better and better.
Yeah. Talk to me about the day you launch a new rod. What does that feel like for you?
I'll go fishing.
Do you?
No,
you probably do. What does it feel like? You put in so much time and
the
energy.
Whole team, man.
But
the whole team is just taxed at that point.
Are you guys when you make a breakthrough, let's say on H4, when you're like, holy shit, we were able to make this thing even more accurate? Does everybody take a second, pause, and they kind of applaud in a lab, and it's like we did it, we created this? Really?
No, it really is. There's an immense amount of pride, especially in the rod shop. You know, I mean, like,
do you guys ever did you ever applaud?
No, we didn't golf clap it. I mean, you know, it would have been cool.
Yeah.
I mean, here, real quick. Thank you, Rod Shop. Right? I mean, no joke. I mean, the thing of it is, and it's the nature of our business, is as soon as you accomplish something, like H3 launched, I remember coming back and it was like sit down R&D meeting with the people, you know, team at the Rod Shop. And Frank's like, okay, how are we going to make it better? And we're already thinking about new materials that had come in for evaluation after we had already made H3 material selection, because our rod development timelines are like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, so like mid in, you know, we have like what we call the advanced concepts, you know, R&D, and we do it for weighting. I mean, we do it for packs. I mean, we do it for just about everything. And we're always tinkering and thinking and iterating and trying to innovate. And so really those moments, you never really like stop and take a deep breath and be like, oh, we did it. You know, you want to have the moon launch moment, you know, but at the end of the day, not joke and just go fish and like appreciate the product and be like, huh, yeah, well, that one's done. Let's see what people think.
Do you fish a lot?
I try to. A different answer than before. Enough.
That's what you said last time. Yeah. How much do you fish?
I don't know.
Come on, I need an exact number.
I'm not a counter. I don't count ski days.
Do you count fish that you catch?
Nope. Try not to.
What about permit?
Oh, that's 0. That's an easy number. That's an easy number. I threw up my first permit 10 years ago, and I threw up my last permit about 3-4 weeks ago.
Shut up. And you're done?
Yeah. No. I mean, the last one I ever thrown.
I thought it was like you were retiring from permit fishing.
And I fed that fish and got back in the crunchers and just mangled my fly. And, you know, long stroke, slow strip. Like, there's a point in my body geometry where you can't strip anymore, and it eats right there every time. And then
that's where he eats?
Yeah, that's where he likes to eat.
Well, maybe if you made the rod a little longer, it would work.
It could. Or I start my strips a little closer to the stripping guide.
I do remember, for those still listening, thank you for chiming in. Not chiming in. Thanks for sticking around. I was an intern at Orvis when I was in college, and I was like the social media intern, go figure.
Is that what you did?
Kinda, yeah. Blog and social media. And I sat next to Tom and Phil and Tucker.
Julia and Tucker, yeah.
Yeah. And I always remember like seeing Shawn in his office, and I was kind of like, damn, that's Shawn Combs. Like, that's the guy who made the Helios. Like, that guy's a pretty big deal. And Shawn one day like came up to me. He's like, you want to fish tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, definitely. He's like, all right, be at this pin at 4:30 a.m. tomorrow. And I remember like literally waking up like in the dark, driving to this spot. And I just remember like Shawn pulling up in his truck, and he was the most dialed angler I had ever seen. And I was almost like nervous to be fishing with him. And we floated the bat and kill, and it was me, Shawn, and another member of the Orvis team. And we caught some awesome fish. I was in charge of capturing some good content.
Don't go there. Don't fall on that sword. Let me do it. Let me push it. Yeah. So the whole thing was as our budding social media, I was like, hey, there's this guy, Rosenbaum, this guy, this intern, Jared. He's got like a GoPro. We bought him a GoPro, and he has an Instagram. He does all of it. It's great. You should go fishing with him. So I'm like, yeah, he seems nice. I go over and I'm like, hey, and you were there like 5 minutes early. I think you camped out.
Oh, dude. I didn't go to sleep that night.
Yeah, it was great. And then you got your GoPro. And at the time, it was so much easier, right? Like, I mean, you just had a GoPro, and that was it. So you only had one job to do, was use the GoPro. And this guy, Bobby, was up front, and he caught a nice one. And I'm like, I kind of like do like a 6 a.m, don't wake anybody up. Like, yep, that's sweet. Got a fish. And I'm like, Jared, you getting this? And you're like, yup, I'm getting it, dude. I'm getting it. And you're like up behind me in the back of the boat, and we net it, and like hanging off the side of the boat. You're like, don't even worry about lifting it, dude. And it's a good fish. I think it was Bobby's like best bat and kill streamer fish.
Yeah.
It's still super early. Coffee hasn't kicked in, and and then we release the fish, and then a couple more. Same program. They're like, well, yeah, got another one, and like GoPro man's on it. About 7 hours later, I walk over to you at lunch, and I'm like, dude, you got that footage? Let's see that footage. And then you're like, you look just like defeated.
I was so defeated.
And you go, I got to show you. And you push play, and all you hear is got one, and then it goes black.
I literally didn't shoot anything.
No,
I don't
you
think we
shot everything in between the fish.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
You filled up like the GoPro card.
Yeah.
And it literally was just like bouncing around on the boat, listening to us.
Yeah.
Taking pictures of the sky.
It was pretty embarrassing.
And every time we caught a fish, you would turn it off.
Yeah.
And then you would turn it back on and set it down in the tray, and it would just bounce around again. So, just to show you, everybody's listening, don't give up on your dreams.
Yeah. I will always remember that moment of being a huge botch with me creating content.
No, it was awesome. I held that one responsible to Phil. I was like, Phil, did you know you hired an intern that doesn't know how to use a GoPro?
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, that whole experience really got me thinking that you are such a dedicated and passionate angler, and I'm assuming that goes into the products that you're making. I mean, how important is you testing the products on the water, you fishing, you being out there? I know there's a whole team around you, so but how important is that that passion and that fire and that drive for you to want to be out there testing the products and fishing the products?
Early on, I thought it was super important to be like, well, I'm gonna go out and single-handedly, I'm gonna fish in these boots, and I'm gonna see how the traction is and how comfortable they are. And I think that the passion I think it's important. The time on the water creates new ideas, like the ideation, in fishing. I don't know if this is for you or for the people who are watching, but everything else turns off when I fish, and you're just like, you're focused on one thing. And to sometimes to a fault, right? You don't get to stop and like look at the beautiful scenery and all that. But I think that the passion is important. The experiences and the note taking, the mental, I want to make it better. I want, that's important. But I think fishing with people and fishing around people and watching them and being a casual observer and that's still fishing and still passion driven. I think you get more out of that. I mean, I probably, they say fishing, like you never stop learning or whatever. Well, you can never stop observing or, collecting insight. And I think that's huge because it is ever changing, and it's not always just like a new fly or new technique or something like that. It's just a new approach to it. And so there's that side of it, and seeing some of my favorite experiences going out with newer anglers and seeing some of the, witnessing some of the challenges and struggles, stuff that a lot of people who've done this for a while, they're just like, oh yeah, this is how you do this. And it's just second nature. And they're like, got the YouTube out and pausing and backing up and pausing. And so seeing that and trying to solve some of those problems, that's probably just as important, because I think that the whole thing is linked back to new anglers, having them have better success, fall in love with it, then fall in love with the resource. They go from like wanting to catch fish to wanting to catch a lot of fish to wanting to protect the resource so future generations can catch fish. Yeah. Which is huge. So
yeah. Love that.
Didn't answer your question.
All good. We can move on.
I'm still not gonna fish enough.
Yeah. A couple times a week.
I don't know.
Maybe
every
day. How much is the rod?
I think it's $10.98.
$10.98.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like
you mean $1,098.
Yeah.
I love how you said $10.98. It sounds like cheaper, maybe.
No, I don't.
I know.
It doesn't sound cheap at all.
So you're spending $1,000 on a fly rod.
Yep.
Talk to me about why you think it's worth that much money.
Sure. Well, one, if our rod shop's open every day, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You can go. Anybody from the public can go and sign in for a tour.
Yeah.
When you walk a tour, it takes about an hour and a half. You see the 50-plus people with countless hand-touch interactions. You see that kind of resource that's been, injected into the product itself, the passion and the kind of craftsman side. You see that, and then you also look over and you're seeing equipment that is state-of-the-art technology that's not cheap. And, you kind of see the touch point and what it takes to make a fly rod. And people usually leave that tour and they're like, I can't believe you guys only charge $1,000 for this. My mountain bike cost $8,000.
Yeah.
My XYZ, my this, that, and the other, like people are kind of dumbfounded. And it's interesting because, we also try to manage, our assortment and have opportunities for, entry price points, like the Encounter outfit's $179 and you get a fly line, a reel and everything, SA, our partners, they just launched a fly line that's $179,
Damn.
149. I mean, but it's the best clear floating fly line.
Is it the most accurate?
I mean, when you put it on a Helios, but I mean, like those lines are no joke, and a lot of people are like, I don't get it. And it's like, well, how often do you burn through lines? Well, first of all, take the performance side.
Yeah.
How often have you fished a clear floater that hasn't, either not floated after a day or got roasted after three tarpon or one tarpon or whatever, right? And the durability of that line, the performance of that line, I've fished them in the Keys, in Panhandle for tarpon. I fished them in Seychelles.
Yeah.
They're awesome. And, and you scratch your head and you're like, so there's a flat line, but I get one of those in the Encounter outfit, so it's a balancing act of like where the performance goes in and where the value proposition goes in to create accessibility.
Cool. What's next? I mean, is this your last rod with the company?
I hope not.
So how does that work? I mean, are you like, do you take a vacation for 2 years and then they call you in and you're like, Shawn, we need to start working on the 5. We need the 5.
No.
What do you relax a little bit after? Is it like, I'm assuming the year when you're launching a rod's maybe a little more hectic?
Yeah, no, it's honestly, it never really slows down. And we work in 6 seasons at the same time. So because of our product development life cycles are 2 or so years from ideation to commercialization when they're in the store. Like we start working on a product 2 years ahead of that. So right now, I think we are getting ready to kick off fall 27.
Damn.
Yeah.
What's today?
I don't know. I think it's 2024.
Yeah.
So we're working 3 years out,
Holy
2
moly.
seasons a year.
Are you thinking about
season?
the H5 yet?
Yeah, sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it going to be called the H5?
No, it's going to be called Helios probably. But, I mean, I was hoping for the anglers to, because everybody wants to give like Helios 3.
Yeah.
H3 like rolls off the tongue, right? I really am hoping that everybody adopts Quattro on this one and just starts like throwing out like, yo, you fishing a Quattro? Cool.
Did you bring that up to the marketing team and they were like, yeah, Shawn, I don't think this is going to work?
No, that's everything else that I say. They're like, no, I don't think it doesn't work. Just go back to the lab.
Anything else that you're really excited about? Maybe that's coming out in the next year that is juicy? Just give this listener something a little juicy.
The product team's been crushing it on weighting, the weighting category, and not just submersible weighting category stuff in the footwear.
Are you? Sorry,
no.
I mean to interrupt.
No.
In the weighting category, is it tough to compete with brands that are made in the USA?
Yeah. I mean, you got one brand, iconic brand that's made in the USA. I think that. That's a good question. I mean, it's a really good question. You should do this more often.
You should do this more often, dude. I'm really grilling you.
Yeah, I'm sweating over here.
It's because we turned off the AC.
Yeah, put them in the heater, the hot box. Yeah, I mean, it is the weighting category undoubtedly has gotten way more competitive, and the coolest part about that is I think that the team rises to the pressure and the challenge, and like that kind of we looked with the pro waders. We looked at Gore. We looked at Torre. We looked at, every fabric package available.
Yeah.
And we basically said, you know what? These are all good, but they're not great. Let's develop our own ground up. And so we worked with Cordura and the lamination package, the waterproof breathable side, the membrane is awesome.
Yeah.
The face fabric, both in the 4 and the 5 layer is awesome. In those moments of dialing that in and taking that kind of, like what could be those pillow moments where you're like going home and crying in the pillow. You just sort of have to say, you know what, that's what it is. And we're going to make better product too. So,
cool. That sounds amazing. All right. So some new waders coming down.
New
the
waders,
line. What
new
else?
boots. Well, it's 50 years since we've been making graphite rods. So there's a little spoiler alert there. There's something coming down the road that might
Tell me
be
more.
I don't know if I can tell you. I mean, when does this air?
I think it airs probably after that rod launches. So I think you can tell us everything.
No.
So there's another rod.
Yeah, there's gonna be another. Just like
the H5 is coming out this year.
No.
Is it going to be the most accurate?
Nope. No, it's gonna be this. It's gonna be the sweetest. I mean, honestly, I'll tease it a little bit because these rods at first, and like the merchant team is like, hey, you know what we should do? And they told me, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like we should do that.
Yeah.
Like let's make 2-handed rods. I love 2-handed. I love steel and I love swinging rod. Let's give Helios some room just to be Helios.
Okay.
And then we started working on it, and it was like super fun. Hint. And it was with a material that we've been working with for 50 years, and the whole task was making it as supple and soft and slow and like just small creek dry fly magic, like making that. And it was a different challenge, right? Instead of being rods that are on the other end of the performance spectrum where everything's happening fast. You've been on a flats boat, like you're sitting there and you're like, dude, it's kind of boring. Go.
There's a rod for David Mangum, and then there's a rod for
there's a rod for like Kenny G.
Kenny G
on vacation.
And this is what that's for?
Yes, this is as smooth jazz.
What's it going to be called?
I can't tell you that.
What's the first letter of it?
S.
Ooh. Guys, leave in the comments what you think that's going to be called.
Yeah. How slow can you make?
Whoa.
Slow? It's like
slow. Okay.
Slow.
Is it glass? No, it's graphite. No, you said graphite already.
I mean, I just said we've been making graphite rods for 50 years.
So it sounds like it's glass.
I don't know.
You look like you're sweating.
I'm getting hot.
I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks for guiding me on the frying pan. It was awesome.
I don't know if I really guided you, but
you did.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah,
we're gonna go catch a couple more this afternoon.
We'll try to
a grass carp.
Yeah, high tide.
All right,
I love the high tide and the chocolate milk.
All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. Just kidding. We'll see you on the next one. I don't know when it's going to be. We're still figuring it out. Later.